Hi guys, this is Aaron, and today what we're going to do is we're going to be using Catia to take this drawing and we're going to turn it into a three-dimensional model. Okay, just like this is what we're going for. This model, however, was made in SolidWorks. We're going to be making it in Catia. Okay, it'll be very similar, but just a little bit different. So the first thing I want to do is I want to print off this print, or if you like to, you can just take a screenshot of it or a picture with your phone, and then we'll kind of go from there. I'll drag and drop this into view as we go. Okay, so let's go to our Catia. So when you first open up Catia, this is going to be our blank screen. What we want to do is go to File, and we're going to go to New. And what we'll do is we'll come all the way down here to Part, and we'll click OK. First thing it tells us to do is it wants us to enter a part name on the blueprint. If we open it back up, you'll see the part name is 8M. So we will simply name it 8M and hit OK. So when this first pops up, before we get going any further, we want to make sure that our units are not in millimeters. So when we go to draw up our part, it won't throw us off guard. Okay? So I'm going to go up to Tools. I'm going to come down to Options. And if you're on a different screen, I'll go ahead and come to a different screen. You'll want to come up to General, drop that down, click Parameters, Measurements, and then I want to go to Units. Now you notice the very first thing is length, okay, the most common, and mine is already in inches, but if it was not, say if it was in millimeters, which the majority of the time it will be when you're starting fresh, is you will come down here and simply select inches. You don't have to hit apply, you simply click it and hit OK. So now when we draw up our model, everything will be in the right units. So down here we have a lot of our planes. You'll notice in the top left that it is signifying which plane is which. I want to use my XY plane, that way left and right is X, up and down is going to be Y. Okay, so I'll click that, and then with it highlighted, I'm going to come up here to Sketch. So what that does is it orientates me to the X and Y. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I want to come over here to my sketching tools. Okay, a lot of sketching tools. You'll get familiar with these as you go. If you'll notice, I'm going to do my rectangle, and then I'm going to come right here to the middle. Now notice the 0, 0 means I'm right in the middle. Okay. Now the top number is going to be the X value, and then the lower one is going to be the Y. So this actually helps if you're trying to get something close before you actually dimension it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right to the 0, 0. I'm going to click. However, I don't know which way I want to go. So the center right here is going to be my origin. So let's click down on our print again. And it says the bottom left is origin, which means I need to click and drag my my rectangle straight up and to the right. So I'm going to come up and to the right. Now I'm going to make a couple mistakes in here that you will see, and that's fine. I'm going to make them intentionally because I want to show you how to go back and fix them correctly. Okay, so I'm just going to make a square, and with that said, all I have to do is come up to Exit Workbench, because now I want to make a boss out of it. Now let's come back to our print and we'll see how we're going to do this process plan. So my process plan is to make this boss, the secondary boss, a pocket, and then my holes with the circular pattern. Okay, and this is a process plan that works really well. You could actually do it backwards. You could do this boss first, and then the pocket and the holes, and then this secondary boss. But we're going to build from the ground up, and then we'll build our pocket and our holes. So the first thing I want to do is I want to find out how tall this first boss is going to be. So if I look here, I'm using a 1/2 inch material, and my profile is 150 thousandths deep. So if I pull my calculator up, I can go a 1/2 inch minus 150 thousandths equals 350 thousandths. So what I'll do is I'll come back to Catia, and I will simply click on my pad. I call it a boss, but it's a pad. I'll click that up. That will extrude my part up, and I'm going to actually type in what it's supposed to be. So it defaults to some random number. Okay. So another thing I want to point out, it is selected if I click off of it, it'll do a dimension, but my preview button's not there. So I definitely have to have it selected before I can preview the height of it. So let's change this to the correct height. And then I'll hit enter. And there's my correct height. Now if you wanted to measure this to make sure it was right, I have this measure item right here. When it shows the calipers, it's going to measure the thickness. Okay? See how it measures thickness? As I move my cursor around, you'll see that it stays the right dimension. Very good. So I'll hit cancel. So I definitely want to make my next boss. So if I look here, I've got the first boss. I want to make this profile boss on top of it. So I need to select this surface and then create my geometry from there. So what we'll do is we'll come over here and I will select the surface that I want to build on. So if I selected the side and I went to sketch, and if it comes out of view, we have a fit all in, you'll see that I can actually start sketching from the side, which is cool if you have multiple features around this part. However, that's not how I want to do it. So I will exit it, click on the surface I want, and I will go right back into sketch. And then I will fit all. Now if you want to get familiar with some of the mouse functions, if I hold the third mouse button, which is the roller, if I hold it down, I can pan. Okay, I'm moving it around. If I click the right mouse, nothing really happens. Okay, but if I click and hold the second mouse and the third mouse, I can rotate everything. Now while still keeping the third mouse down, the roller, if I let go of the right mouse, I can zoom in and out. This will take some getting used to, so take your time. Now if I want to come back to the surface, I simply click on it and go normal view. Alright, so let's go ahead and get to the geometry. The first thing I did was a rectangle. The next thing I want to do is a profile. Now this allows us to do all kinds of cool stuff. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and click profile. And let's look at our print. And I won't pull this up too much. I'm actually going to move it out of the way for a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up, over, make my arc, come down, make an arc, come over, make an arc, come down, and then close the profile. After that, we will start dimensioning. So with that said, I'll move this out of the way for a moment. I'll come down here to 0, 0. It will be kind of hard to see, but I will do my best to make it visible. I'll click up. And I'm not trying to make it perfect, I'm just trying to go to where it looks right. Okay, if you wanted to, you could get pretty close. Okay, so let's say right there, I'll come over. Now right here, once I get here, I want to make an arc. Now to do that, I'm going to click and hold my left mouse, and I'm going to pull down, and then I'll let go. By pulling down, it makes the arc in that area. Okay, I want to make sure it's a 90, and you can tell it's a 90 when it goes blue. If it's not blue, it's an arc. Now this right here is going to be a 90-degree angle on the screen. So let's go ahead and finish the rest of it. I'll come down. Make sure you don't have it at an angle like this as well before you make the arc. Let's keep it nice and straight. I'm going to click and hold again, and I'm going to move to the bottom left and see how it makes my angle. Click again. I've got one more. I'll click and come down. And then I move until I get that right angle. And then I'll simply come down until you see my line, my dotted line pops up. That means I am horizontal. And then I'm going to close the curve. A lot of people will stop here and their curve is not closed. If that happens, you can simply click on your geometry again, click on this point, and then close it. So you can see that it is closed. So with that said, this looks absolutely nothing like the picture. So that's where our dimensioning comes in, or the constraining. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to work my way around the part. I'm going to constrain this and this because they're my outermost dimensions, and then I'll start constraining the walls and the radiuses. So it shouldn't take very long. So let's pull this back out of the way. So let's constrain the height. Now to do that, I can click on this one time and then click on any of these lines and it will pull out a dimension. Okay? However, what I want to do, I'll go ahead and delete that. is I don't want to come back here, click on it, make a dimension, click on it, make a dimension. So to do this quickly, I'm going to double click on this so it keeps it selected. So I'm going to click on this, I'm going to come over, and then to change this I'm going to double click on it and simply type it in, which is 3 inches 937 thousandths, and I will hit enter. And then I'll do the same thing for the next one. If I want to dimension all the way, I'll click from here to this line, and it is also the same amount. It is going to be 3 inches 937 thousandths. So now it's starting to look a little bit better. So now I'll constrain this bottom area to right here, and that is going to be 1 inch 969 thousandths. And what I'll do is just come back through, and now that I've got all my lines constrained this way, I'll start constraining the height, which is the last one, which is right here. And you can put it up here if you can see it. I'm going to put it down here so it's a little bit more visible. But that last one is going to be 984 thousandths. Very good. So now my profile is constrained. I just got to constrain my radiuses. So if I look at my radiuses, my top one is going to be 1 inch 181 thousandths. And then these other two are going to be 5/16. So let's minimize this, and let's simply just click on these, and I'll click on it, and it's going to be 312 thousandths. 312 thousandths. And this is going to be 1 inch 181 thousandths. So if you'll notice, these look like they went to pretty visible areas. However, this one's kind of hard, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and hold, and I can move it up and over, and then I can move it around. So you can move these dimension text several different ways. Okay, so I like that right there. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and make a pad or another boss out of what I have, because everything is green, and if everything is green, everything is constrained. Now if it was white, sometimes it will let you get away with it, but more often than not, you definitely want to make sure everything is green. So I will hit Exit Workbench, and I will make a pad. If we look back at our blueprint, we'll see that this profile is 150 thousandths deep, which means that this boss is 150 thousandths tall. So I'll bring that back over here, and I'll type in 0.150. Enter. So looks pretty good, except for one thing. It does not look like our print. If you'll notice here, this looks like it's a lot closer, and that looks like a lot closer. It looks like we have a lot of excess material here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to fix this first pad. So we're kind of working backwards. Most softwares will have you restart. However, Catia is really good at rebuilding your model even though you're past that point. Okay? So what is that boss supposed to be? Well, that boss is our material. So the material is 4 inches by 4 inches, and that's what will make our material. So to do that, I'm going to come over to Part Body, and if you click on the white, you'll notice that changes color, then you can't change anything. Okay? So to fix that, simply click on the white anywhere on the ladder, and it will put you back into there. Very easy to do, but don't freak out. So let's go back to Sketch. I don't want to change the pad. The pad is the thickness. Okay. If I double click on it, the thickness is fine. We got that right. What I want to do is I want to change the sketch. Well, if you'll remember, we just made a rectangle. We didn't do any constraining. So I'm going to double click on my constrain, and I'll just make this 4 inches by 4 inches. And as soon as I leave my sketch, you'll notice that it flickered red because it was wrong, but Catia automatically rebuilt my model correctly, if it's possible. If it's not possible, it's going to give you errors, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to go back and fix it. So we have this right, so that's looking pretty good. So let's look back at our print. We'll see that we have our first boss, our second boss. Now we're going to make our pocket. Now we're going to do this one a little bit different. I'm going to show you some cool features. So We don't know the distance from the side to there without doing a little bit of math, but we're going to do this the easy way, the sketching way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a point right here, and that way I can make a rectangle expand from the center out. Okay, that'll make a little bit more sense. I'll pull this over here. Again, we want to start our sketching from this surface, so I'll click that surface and go right into our sketcher. So I'm going to come down here to a point, and then I'm going to put it right there. Okay, so the first thing I have to do is I want to dimension the location of that point. So we'll double click our constrain. Notice how that is still highlighted, so all I have to do is come highlight this, and it gives me that location. So that is going to be 1 inch 377 thousandths. I'll hit enter, and it moves it over there. However, this went white, it's not selected anymore, so I will have to select it again, select the bottom, and I can come over here, and that is going to be 2 inches 755 thousandths. So now that I have this corrected, I'm ready to go ahead and make my rectangle. However, if I click my rectangle, it makes it from that location. So that's not going to work. That's not what I want. So I'm going to hit escape. I have my drop down menu, and I'm going to make this rectangle from a center point, which is very helpful. So we'll select that. I'll come to my center, and then I'll make a rectangle. So from here, it's pretty easy. All I need to know is how big my rectangle is, which is 1 inch 968 thousandths and 5/10, and it's the same dimension both ways. So with that said, I'll double click on my constraint, and then once I click on it, I'll double click on the dimension, and I'll type in 1 inch 968 thousandths and 5/10 and hit enter. And then I simply just do it the other way. So I'll come down here, I'll move it over here so we can see it a little better. 1 inch 968 thousandths and 5/10. Great. So now I have my square all done and constrained. However, if I look here, I have radiuses. So there's two ways you can do it. I'll show you both ways, and I'll show you the way that I prefer. But I have a 312 thousandths typical in 4 places. Okay, so each one of these is going to be the same measurement radius. So I'll hit minimize, and I can do it with this tool right here. This right here is a corner, and I can click on a corner, and then it makes my arc however big it needs to be, or my chamfer. Okay, so we'll give you an alarm, so it says this, and then I can click on here and type in 312 thousandths. So that way, I have to click here again, go back up here, click there again, go back there. So I don't want to do that. So I want to delete, and I'm going to hit Control Z, so it puts it back to where it is. There is a way to where you just click your corners and it does a fillet radius, but again, I want to do it a simpler way, even more simpler than that. So I have my square. I'm going to exit the workbench, and this time, because I have a pad, I can make a pocket. So you'll notice when I click on it, it won't let me make the pocket. It won't do it. Even if I hit OK, it can't do it. I have elements that need to be fixed. However, I'll just simply click sketch again, but all of my lines are green. Well, here's the problem. This point right here in the middle is incomplete. It can't make the pocket with that there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it. I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to turn it into a construction element, which means if this right here was a constructed element, see how it takes it into a dotted line? It's used for reference geometry only. Okay, so that means with the dotted line, hopefully it's still geometry. We'll find out in just a second. When I go to make my pad or make my pocket, you'll notice that if I preview it, I didn't get any alarms. Everything looked pretty good. So the question is, how deep is the depth of that pocket? So that pocket is going to be 196 thousandths deep. So with that said, I'll simply come up here, 196 thousandths deep, and hit enter. So there's our pocket, but we still don't have where the radius is in our corner. So what I'm going to do is, not in Sketcher, I'm going to come down to here, and I have something called an edge fillet. Very cool feature because you can always add or remove more fillets with the same part of the body. Okay, so that makes more sense as I do it. So we want that to be 0.3125 or 312. And then I'm going to simply come over here and see how it actually, and if you need to, you can zoom up on this as much as you want. I'm going to make sure just that corner is highlighted. And notice it gives me a preview. Shows that's what's going to happen right there. So if I hit OK, I'm going to zoom out. You'll see that it looks pretty good. However, it's just one of them. Here's what's really cool. I'm simply going to come over here to my part body, double click on the fillet. It keeps that dimension, and I'm going to rotate my view, and I'm going to click on this one right here. And if I hit preview again, it does the same thing, but I want to go ahead and click these other two. Now to do that, I am going to hold down the control button and click, so that way you notice how they're all staying red. If I didn't hold down control, it would deselect this one and then make that one the new selected item. And then I'll click on that. I'll hit preview. It looks good. I hit OK. And now all of my corners have been done. Very quick. And if I needed to do any more, I could simply do that as well. You can also do that with this geometry as well. It's just whichever one you prefer. Alright, so now I'm ready to make my holes. So with that said, I'm going to have an 1/8 inch diameter hole, 196 thousandths deep, equally spaced. Alright, so let's go ahead. The first thing we want to do is we want to make a point, another point. That way we can get the distance from here to here, and we'll make our hole. So with that said, I'll click here, and then I'll go into my sketch mode, and I'm going to make a point. And with that point, we're just going to put it anywhere in here, and then we're going to come to our constraint, and I'm going to click from there. It's already selected from here. That's going to be that same number. That number is going to be 1 inch 377 thousandths. So we'll say 1 inch 377 thousandths, and then I'll click it again, and I'm going to get the height of it, 2 inches 755 thousandths. So from here, remember how we had that problem? I want to click on this and make it a construction line. Okay, and I'll click off it. That way I can still use the point, but it won't affect me when I go to make the hole. So what I can do from here is I'm going to actually come up to my hole area and make a circle. And then notice how I came to the point and started coming up. By doing that, it makes my hole. But see, this still thinks it's in a construction line. This is not a problem. I'm going to drop it and deselect the construction lines. That makes it a solid. So now I'll make the diameter, which is 125 thousandths, and then I need to make the distance, which the distance from the center of my pocket to the center of my hole is going to be 787 thousandths. So now that I have it positioned correctly, and it is straight up from the center, I can exit my workbench. I can come to my pocket, which it is making a pocket, and then I'm going to put it at 196 thousandths deep, which it already is, and I can preview it, or I can just simply select OK. So that's great. So now I have a hole, but now I have to make a circular pattern. Okay, I want to make sure it's not all the way through, because it is not all the way through on here. So from here, I want to come back to this drawing because I need to make a circular pattern, not a rectangular pattern. I want to make a circular pattern. But before I do, I need to be able to rotate around a point. So with that said, I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to come into my sketcher, and I'm going to make another point, and we're going to do the same thing. We'll sketch it from here, which is 1 inch 377. We'll sketch from here to there, which is 2 inches 755 thousandths. And then I'm simply going to make that a construction. Click on that, make sure it is construction. And then I'm going to just simply leave the sketch. So notice how it kept that right there. So now that we have my hole, what we're going to do is we're going to make a circular pattern from the hole. So if it doesn't show up, we'll hit the drop down menu and we'll click circular pattern. Okay? So with that said is we'll come down here and I'm going to hit more because we'll need that to come up. And I'm going to make a current solid. My object of pattern is not the current solid. That would take the whole part. So if I did the whole part, and like say we chose a selection right here, see how it takes my whole part and it's making multiple areas of it. So we don't want to do that. So what I'll do is I'll click current solid and I'll click on the hole itself. But if you'll notice, it's making it around my origin. So I don't want to make it around my origin. I want to make it around this point that I've selected right here. So I'm going to turn radial alignment of instances off. I'll come back to my reference element and then I will simply select on the square. Now notice how that made it correct. It's actually going to revolve around this point. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my print and I'll see that I have 8 holes, so I need 8 instances and they're equally spaced. So what I'll do is I'll come over here and then I'll come over to instances and I'll put 8. And I have a 45 degree, so it keeps it constant. So with that said, I've got a 45 degree angle, I have all my holes, and I'll simply hit OK. So it seems a little bit lengthy to do the circular pattern, but that is a pretty accurate way of doing it. So if I have a point here and I need to hide something, I can right click on it and I can go hide show. If you clicked on something and hid something you didn't want to, I can simply hit Control Z 2 times and it will pull it right back up. So with that said, if I look back on my print, you'll see that everything is done. So from here we have our part modeled and we're ready to start the machining portion of our part. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again for watching.